Hi, hello. Welcome in. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. I'm going to get wait a few minutes and chat with you. See if anybody else wants to swing by. But hey, thanks for stopping by. This is the last solo TTRPG that we're going to look at today. This is Ego by Sandy Pug Games. Everything that we've looked at today has been some form of journaling game. And the reason I did that is I sort of wanted to show that not all journaling games are made exactly the same way. I think a lot of folks have some very, specific and potentially narrow ideas of how journaling games are generally laid out and run. And so I wanted to give some four different examples of what can be done with just the idea of a journaling game. And I think the four that I picked today are a really good example of how different they can actually be. The first one we looked at, Riding the Ley Line, is actually not touted as a solo TTRPG. It's touted as a mini LARP because it's meant to be played as you are actually riding the bus. And the whole idea is that you were sort of journaling about, well, what if your bus ride to work was actually you having to commute from one dimension to another, and what do those dimensions look like, and why do you have to do this commute? What is your job actually? And it's just a page and a half. Honestly, you can sort of commit the prompts to memory, and then just every time you ride the transit, just make a little journal entry. Pick one thing to focus on that day, do a little journal entry, and it's just a wonderful way to pass the time on what would otherwise be maybe a very boring commute. I'm lucky in that I can climb, I can be in a vehicle and read. I know that some people can't. If the vehicle is moving, if they start to try and read something, they get nauseous, and luckily I don't have that issue, so I can both read and sleep on longer vehicle rides. And then Riding the Ley Line is a good way to pass that time. The next one we looked at was I want to get the name right because I'm right in my head. I'm saying it the right. Night Astray was the second one. And this was a journaling game that is very much a straight ahead journaling game, meant to be played on your own, but different from other journaling games in that it doesn't impose boundaries on you the way that some other journaling games will. A lot of other journaling games will use say, for instance, a deck of cards or a deck of tarot cards to sort of specify prompts, which is great, and that's not a knock on those games that do it. The games that use those are very thematic, and actually we played a number of games that have used both decks of cards. Actually, the game that we did previous to this, The Machine, uses a deck of cards. But it is interesting to see something where you would maybe expect to see the situation a little bit more controlled and prescribed, not to be that way, and have it be open and have it leave everything up to you, which I think fits very thematically with the idea of a fallen knight seeking redemption, because at the end of the day, your redemption is in your hands. If you're going to If you're going to be the person you want to be, that's on you. Yes, the outside world, does its thing, but really you've got choices to make, and so you have to decide what those are and go ahead with them. And then the third game we looked at was The Machine, in which you are afflicted by whispers in the dark that are trying to get you to build something. You can envision it in your mind, and you are driven to build this machine, whatever that machine is. And yes, it's a journaling game. It does use a deck of cards to give you like writing prompts and stuff like that, which is great. But it is also a journaling game. It's a solo TTRPG journaling game that is meant to be, like, at its best, it is meant to be played with other people. So when you get to the end of your journaling and inevitably fail, because that is built into the game, the idea is that you then pass that journal and the pamphlet for the game, because the pamphlet has includes like character traits for your character that once you have chosen them, no one else who is playing, no future players, can choose those traits. So every character is going to be unique, and you have to sort of like, and then it'll go through, and then the idea is that when it gets to the end, when you've basically filled up the journal, the journal then gets shared out with everybody who has been playing up to that point, and everybody gets to partake of the story. And there are safety tools built in, so you are expected, if there's like difficult stuff that you have written about in your journal entries, it's expected that you will put content warnings so that future journal writers, when they go back to read your stuff, know that there might be stuff that they need to watch out for, right? If they're not into like X, then don't read the entry on page 8, sort of thing. Yeah. And then this last one that we're going to look at today in a moment is another journaling game. As I said, Ego by Sandy Pug Games. I will put the link in chat. That is where you can grab it. But the whole reason that I am running these solo TTRPGs on solo Saturdays and on Thursday nights is to raise money for Extra Life. It is my charity of choice. You can see the bar at the top. I am a scant $157 away from my $1,000 goal. I would love to hit that today, but I would also love like just any little bit of motion on that would be fantastic. So if you have some dollars to spare, please do go by. I do have some wonderful incentives, and I'm just putting the link in chat right now. And now I will do it with the exclamation point so that it actually... There we go. That is the link to my donation page. There are some wonderful incentives on there. Basically, depending on what level you donate at, I will create something for you and your game. Full disclosure, unless you are the DM, getting it past your DM is up to you. But I will create it for you. You have to sweet talk your game master. And then if you look at all of the donation levels on there, and like if you only have like a couple of bucks to donate and you still want to help out, there's a link on there to something I've created on my itch page called the Oath of the Hive, which is something I created for D&D 5th edition, where you can essentially play as a sentient swarm of bees who is also a paladin inhabiting, or sorry, let me get the order of this right. A paladin who is also a sentient swarm of bees inhabiting a suit of armor. It's a fun little oath. If you want to try something a little bit different at your table. Again, you are absolutely responsible for getting that past your GM. If you make an extra little donation to Extra Life, maybe I will try and help you out with like an impassioned tweet to whoever your GM is. But that is the best I can promise your GM you and your GM will have to talk that out at your table. Yeah, so that's why I've been playing like solo TTRPGs. Part of the reason is like I do plan going forward to do like more charity streaming for Extra Life and also for other charities, but I sort of didn't get the wherewithal to do that, like the tech and software and stuff all set up in time to do that for the November game day this year. So rather than try and drag people in to play games on stream at the last minute and stuff like that, I figured probably the easiest way for this year is for me to like focus on solo TTRPGs, which I can do by myself and that I really love, and sort of show some of those off because they don't get a lot of love on streaming and stuff like that, which I totally get. It's difficult to engage viewers if you're playing a game just by yourself. I know going forward, like I still plan to talk a lot about solo TTRPGs. I think Thursday nights are going to continue to be. I'll take a solo game and talk about it. And actually, I mean, speaking of one of the games that I plan to play on a Thursday night in December, is this one from Monkey's Paw Games called Chalice. It is it's a little shiny, so I'll turn the cover that way so it doesn't like glare at you. But that is the cover for it, and then it is this beautiful. It's a little hardcover book. It's a beautiful, has like full color, but it is a journaling game about being a Grail Knight, a knight in search of the Holy Grail, and sort of like what that process is like for you, and what happens to you when you inevitably fail to achieve the Grail, as the bulk of knights did. It also has, the book itself has like a ribbon, and I will go on record right now as saying that I am basically like a slut for a good book ribbon. If the book has if a book comes to me and it has a book ribbon, yeah, that book is lovely. I believe you can still get the soft cover versions. This was a special print. Yeah, this is, I've got number 126 of 175, so I think there were only 175 copies of this made. I don't know if Monkey's Paw Games shop still has any available, but go over there and check it out, and do pick up a copy of this because it's going to be fun, and I'm going to play it sometime in December, some Thursday night. Thematically, I might play it as close to Christmas as I possibly can. So when is the 24th? Is the Christmas Eve is a Saturday this year, so that would make the Thursday the 22nd. So probably the 22nd of December. Yeah. But I really just wanted to focus on solo TTRPGs because I think they're awesome. And there are just so many out there, and there's so many different ways to play them and create them. I also think, like, I hesitate to call like any particular form of game, like, I guess when I say that like it's a great way if you've been thinking about creating a game, that a solo TTRPG is maybe a good way to like start that process. I don't mean that to mean that like solo TTRPGs are necessarily like simpler or less interesting or like easier to make, but what they are is they do limit some of the variables, right? One of the things you have to consider when you're creating a game that is going to be played by like multiple people at the same time, is you have to figure out like, so what is going to happen to the game as these people are interacting with it, and like that's something you have to keep in mind. with a solo TTRPG, you're just dealing with like one player at a time, right? So you have like a bit of control over. There isn't a group dynamic necessarily that you have to manage the way that you do if you're doing a set of rules for a multiplayer game, and so that gives you that. I hesitate to call it a restriction, but that boundary gives you then. Because you have that boundary in place, you can then look at other aspects of your game without necessarily having to focus back on that. And I think that's if you're thinking of making a game for the first time, I think this is a good way. There are a number of SRD system resource documents out there for you. I know my friend Kat at Peach Garden Games, they've got the Carta SRD, which is a system resource document for making a game using a deck of cards as your sort of prompts and randomizer. There's like any number of systems that you can grab that will help you build a game. It's a good place to start. It's just a good exercise. Also, one of the hardest things is sometimes, like, if you've made a game for multiple players, one of the hardest things sometimes is to like playtest that game, and because it's hard to get people together to play any game these days. But playtesting a game and getting the right playtesters, people who actually will give you good feedback, can be difficult. So it's nice that at least initially, if you're creating a solo game, you can play test it yourself, and sort of like immediately maybe see like mechanically what you bump up against, or what rubs, or what doesn't quite work. Oh, we got a donation. Oh, did I miss that? Sorry, I was looking at the screen. I could swear I did. Thank you so very much. It's going to tell me in like a second here. David, thank you. David coming in with $57. So we are at 900. So I'm 90% of the way to my goal. Thank you so very much. That is extremely generous of you. Thank you so very much. I'm really excited to sort of have the resources to stream now, because it's something I've wanted to do for a while. I love Extra Life. I love like raising funds for all these other like really great causes that need help, like sort of now more than ever, sadly. Governments are showing that they don't have necessarily have the will to support a lot of this work, and so it's falling to not-for-profit groups to pick up a lot of the slack, and then that sort of trickles down, and it falls to those of us who have the resources and the wherewithal to try and support that work as much as we can, and help community. While I am a big believer in working towards a government that actually like serves its people and services its people, in the meantime, people gotta live, right? So we've got to work within the system that we have while we're trying to change it. And anyway, that was a little off on tangent, but again, thank you so very much, David. That was very generous coming in with that. Greatly appreciated, not only by myself but by the hospital that I'm raising funds for, which is the Stollery Children's Hospital here in Edmonton. Specifically, gets the funding that I raise. So you've helped out a number of sick kids, and that is a good thing. All right. So all of that talk about solo TTRPGs and all of that stuff brings us to our last game of the day, which is also a journaling game, but it is a journaling game with a little bit of a twist. So there is this sort of genre of solo TTRPG that is the term gamification has sort of come in and fallen out of favor a lot. So I'm going to tend to shy away from it just because I don't want to alienate anybody by talking about gamification, because as soon as you do that, like images of like corporate presentations where they like, you know, where they make you play a game that is actually just like geared towards driving you towards the point that they're trying to make with their presentation. But there is this whole type of solo TTRPG which is geared towards as you were sort of journaling and telling your story and stuff like that, which is beneficial in and of itself. Like just the act of like imagination and creation is good for you, no question whatsoever. And so like really any solo game that you play, any solo journaling game that you play where you get to do that is going to be, sorry, I'm just going to do, neck is feeling a bit tight, so I'm just going to quickly, there we go. Yeah, any solo TTRPG you do is going to be beneficial to you that way, but there is a specific type of solo game out there that is designed to, as you are telling the story and as you are, it is designed to be like a form of self-care. One of the earliest ones that I ran into, and you know, a very smart professional streamer would have had a link for this ready to go and be ready to like present it, and that is not me. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Okay. Anyway, I wanted to try and find it. It is by at POC Gamer on Twitter. Let me see if I can. Oh, there's his link tree. There's his itch. Okay, he goes by a different name on itch. That's why I couldn't find it. Oh, and he has like an actual. So here is the itch page. This is one of the very earliest games of this type that I came across. It's called Station Hunt. You'll see it on the page there. Highly recommend downloading and checking it out. But it is, I think he put it out like basically just as we were all sort of like having to isolate for the pandemic. And so what it is basically is it turns moving around your house, living in your house, as if you were living on a space station. And so the different rooms in your house become different rooms on a space station. As you are moving through those rooms, you are expected to do different things that both use and gain you energy. And the idea is that you just day in, day out, you just play this game. And like the things that give you energy are things like, you know, if you're in the mess hall, which is your kitchen, then like do a sink of dishes, or like, you know, do your dishes from your last meal, and that gives you so much energy, and that energy can then be used because the sort of the meta plot is that there is an alien presence that is stalking you around the station, and so you're constantly having to use energy to repair the damage that it's doing. Damage that it is doing in the form of like chores that you have to do, and then like spend that energy to combat it. So every room you go into. So for a very long time, at the very beginning of the pandemic, I was carrying 2d6 with me everywhere, because every time you go into a room, you roll the dice, and you see sort of like what if the creature is coming at you or not, and if you have to fight it off. And maybe you take damage, and maybe you don't, but then you go on with your day. And I will admit, like I'm an introvert by nature, so like being on my own is not a huge deal, except when I have to be on my own for a really long, because just because I'm an introvert and I recharge and from being on my own doesn't mean I don't enjoy spending time with my friends. It just means that spending time with my friends takes energy from me. Like I expend energy spending time with other people, that I then go home and like spend time reading, or spend time like just listening to music or whatever, and or writing or editing or whatever, and regain that energy, and then I go out and spend it again. The problem with isolation is that you can only build up that capacity to spend time with other people so much before you sort of feel like you have to. And I can tell you from personal experience, maybe it's different for other people, just jumping on a call with folks was not enough. Like it was okay, and certainly being able to play games with people online and stuff like that helped a great deal. But so this game was like just being able to do something that like because after a while it's just like, I could do dishes, but why? Like they're just going to be there again tomorrow. Right? Like I'm just going to have like another day of meals, and there's going to be like another thing of so like having something that actually like gave me the prod to like, well, doing dishes is boring, but if you do these dishes, it'll give you like 5 energy points, and so when the alien attacks you next time, maybe you won't get hurt as bad, right? Like, is it silly? Sure. Was isolating for COVID a time when we probably needed some silly? Yes, absolutely. So it was a perfect game. So the game we're going to look at today falls very heavily into that camp. This is called Ego. It is by Sandy Pug Games. I will put its link in the chat again. That is where you can take a look at it and pick it up. Again, it is a very straightforward game. It is only 2 pages long, and most of that second page is your character sheet. So this is what I would call, it's like a meta game. It is all about doing things that are good for you, that are going to then drive the story of drive the narrative of the story that you were telling inside your game. So on your character sheet or in a journal or something like that, you will start by writing down, and I'm actually going to do this because I like the idea of this. I'm at a point, especially going into like the holidays, where I have some time to like actually like quietly reflect on things I need to like improve and stuff like that. Sorry for the loud dice noise. I'm just moving those out of the way. I'm actually going to grab a journal and that I can use again and again. So just 1 second. He's left the screen. Why has he left the screen? Where is he going? He's disappeared into the void. What is happening? And I'm back. So this is just like one of... I'm in the process of cleaning up my gaming room, and as I'm doing that, I'm sort of coming across various like journals and pads of paper and like just all that blank stuff that... so this is one... I'm also really bad. I'm one of those people who will walk into a Staples and be unable to leave without picking up either or new pens or new journals. So this is nothing simple. This is one that I had planned to start. It is just a very simple Hilroy notebook. 5-thing notebook that I had picked up and planned to use as sort of my planning book for a project that I was working on, and it didn't actually end up using it at all. So I'm going to use it for this now. What pen will I use? I'll use my very nice purple pen. You can't really see that but it has a very lovely purple ink that I really enjoy. In any case, so the very first thing you will do in this game is setup. Begin by writing a name, a class, and a goal. This goal can be anything, but should be grand and epic in scale. Bring peace to the land of Unturnia, claim the sacred mantle of Trika Norg, slay the End-Eater snake to save us all, etc. Your character has all the basic abilities of a trainee of your class, whatever that means for you. Imagine what abilities a level 1 version of your class could do, and write 2 to 3 of them down in your abilities. So I'm just going to quickly glance at the character sheet to see how they... Okay. So the idea is that you have this fictional character going on a fictional journey, like fictional adventures and stuff like that. But how you are going to interact with this fictional world is that you are going to do things for yourself in the real world, either acts of self-love or acts of self-improvement. Yes, everyone take a second to giggle at self-love. I know where your minds went. But, and hey, look. Who's to say that that's not one of the things that's going to help you? The examples they give in the game are things like bathing, eating your favorite food, doing a craft you enjoy, watching your favorite show, etc. So basically doing things for yourself that, you know, either relieve stress, make your, like, give you some joy or some enjoyment, and let you go on. And then self-improvement are things like the examples they give are practice guitar, do a few lessons on Duolingo, go for a run, vocal warm-ups, practice a craft you want to master, etc. But let's go back to the beginning here. So I'm going to give myself the name. What's a good fantasy name? There's like... Help me out here, chat. What do you got? A good fantasy name to use. If you got nothing, I'll work out something. Don't worry. I always, like, you know, think that I'm going to go like high fantasy, and then I always tend to go like sort of low fantasy and give them like just a straightforward basic name. Just because I'm a huge fan of the small town person becomes like a major hero trope. But let's see. Sorry, I'm just gonna give my neck a stretch while I'm thinking of a name. Well, I'll use an old online handle that I used to use. So name is going to be Argent Bear. Actually, I'll just use Argent. That's an old character name that I used to have. That will work. So Argent. So name, class, and goal. What should Argent's class be? I love it when it's wide open like this because I am going to make I'm just going to say the class is, I mean, this may change later on. Obviously, if you're playing this game yourself, you have the right to make any changes you want at any point. It's your game. I'm going to say medic. Don't know what that means in context with the world. And goal. Restore peace to the land. Right, and you don't have to make it more complicated than that. Obviously, if you want to adjust any of that information as you're going, like playing through the game yourself, absolutely go ahead and do that. But that's a simple enough place to start, to get started. And then, so I'm a medic. I'm sort of picturing in my mind that, and I'll just put the ability section down here near the bottom. Like obviously, like first aid is a skill they're going to have as a medic. I'm imagining them sort of like actually more or less because I'm sort of imagining them more as like a glorified Boy Scout, not necessarily in the sort of idea of they always do right and good and are always like kind and nice or anything like that. But so maybe medic isn't the right. Maybe we want to go something like let's go Forest Scout. So yeah, first aid, but also like woodcraft. Nature knowledge. I think those are probably good. And they're good with like a bow. Those seem like good, sort of like a basic forest scout things. They know how to interact with animals. They know how to find themselves around the forest. They need to, they can keep themselves alive out there. They can keep other people alive out there. They understand how to help themselves. I think an understanding of like herbology and stuff is like rolled into that. So that seems like a pretty good place to start. And then your character has 6 abilities. And what I sort of like is that right? It talks about stats, so you have 6 stats, but it doesn't actually name the stats. If you pick up this game and look at it, what it has is it has like sort of 6 spaces. So the symbols that they use are a brain, somebody doing like the bicep flex, an open book, an open palm, an anatomically correct heart, and like a thought cloud, right? Which is like, or like a speech bubble, I guess, is actually closer to what it is, although it's sort of drawn as if it's a thought cloud. But, well, no, I guess technically it isn't, because it has like the, this is the years of reading comics that come through. It has the, instead of having like the little dots, which would make it like a thought cloud, it has like the actual sort of swoopy bit that makes it speech bubble. So I mean, you're sort of familiar with those, right? Like if you've played D&D or any other sort of D20 based game, sort of obviously those can be broken down into like the brain would be intelligence, the arm would be like your physical strength, the open book could be like maybe that's wisdom, but maybe that's right. The open palm could be like dexterity, anything that's sort of like dexterity or based, or like more agility based than strength based. The heart could be directly tied, could like be a different like tied into, or could like you could take it as like figuratively, and it's about sort of developing your own confidence and self-worth and stuff like that. And then the speech bubble could be like tied to charisma, but like, you know, tied into how you interact with the people around you. So either developing and maintaining friendships, relationships, that sort of stuff. It's really up to you how you want to interpret those. But that is the sort of the gist of those. And so what it says is for each of your 6 stats, write down a single act of either self-love or self-improvement. These can be any act that you want to do more of that takes about an hour or so. If it is an act of self-love, then mark it with a heart. If it's an act of self-improvement, mark it with a plus sign. These acts do not have to be directly related to your stats, but it's often nice when they are. If you want to get stronger, making your strength act lift weights makes for a nice thematic feel. So you can make them anything, but if you, like as it suggests. And actually I'm going to because I don't have the character sheet, I'm just going to put them write them out literally as they are. So like brain, strength, actually the brain might be mind, so that might be more along the lines of developing like, oh hey Soul, thanks for coming by, and thank you for lurking. By all means, hang out. I am currently playing through or talking and playing through Ego by Sandy Pug Games. Let me put the link in chat again if you want to go take a look at that game yourself. But it is a journaling self-care game, and it is a lot of is very interesting. So yeah, I think I'm going to make that distinction, is that the brain symbol is going to be for mind, which is more sort of like mental health, and And then the book one is going to be more about like learning things. So developing like, you know, sort of knowledge-based skills. So I'm just going to call it learning, because really that could be anything. That could be anything like learning a new language, learning to cook a particular like type of cuisine, like whatever. The open hand, we'll just put agility. The heart, I'm just going to put down as heart, and I will sort of decide what that is going to mean as we go along. And then relationships, we'll just make we'll call the speech bubble relationships, because it seems to imply that you're like talking with other people. And then I'm going to take a sip of water because I've been talking for a while. By the way, if you are enjoying the music that we are currently listening to, this is by my buddy Matt, who you might know as Dungeon Glitch on Twitter. It's called The Bardic College Dropout. It's currently on Spotify, and that's the link for it. You can also follow Matt on Twitter. It is a great album. Matt has put out like some other music before, which is really good. But he is particularly and rightly proud of this newest album. So please do go give it a listen if you like what you're hearing here. Go check that out. And then also give them a follow on Twitter, because they do some fantastic work, not just music, but also like they're just a fantastic positive presence in the tabletop scene. They also do, through their shop Gem to Firefly, they do some like fantastic designs on shirts and mugs, and they just added blankets, which I will be ordering, some nice cozy. Anyway, so yeah, so it suggests like, so add a single act that is of either self-love or self-improvement for each of your stats. So I mean, the strength stat is fairly obvious, right? Like I am already doing that, so I'm just going to put down it's something I'm already doing, and that's something I want to continue doing and make sure I make it a habit. So I put workout. Next to learning, again, it's something I'm already doing, but it's something I want to make sure I keep the habit for. So I am learning French. Technically I'm relearning French, but since the last time I actually looked at it with any regularity was back in like junior high and high school. Actually not even high school, because the last formal French class I took was in junior high, which would be like grade 9. In high school I actually took German for 3 years as my second language, so I know a little bit of German, but certainly less of it than I know French. I sort of grew up learning French alongside all my other classes, so that knowledge is deeply buried, and I've been using Duolingo over the last several months to sort of unbury it and bring it out. You know, je suis parle petit français. Let's see. What are the other ones? So for mind, about an hour of so for relationships, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put down like like make time for a friend which sounds like very vague, and like that may become more specific later on. But I'm thinking that's like you know, hopping in like a Google chat. Now that we're able to sort of like leave the house here in Canada, in like, you know, a lot of people are unmasking. I'm still wearing a mask when I go out, but you know, like going and grabbing a coffee with a friend, which I haven't done in a while. Making time to do that at least once a week, I think would probably be good. You know, for maintaining relationships with the people that I care about. But making time for that, like, you know, not just having it be an accidental thing, but like specifically acting towards that goal. For heart, for mind, I think I'm going to put down work on a personal project. And by that I mean like something that is just for myself, something that I have developed, so not like the editing that I do for other people, not the not projects that I'm working on with other folks that like I'm sort of like part of, but I didn't initiate. This is like working on a project that I have started myself, whether that is writing an adventure, writing like some sort of supplements. I recently, and you'll see that in a couple of weeks, or like 10 days now at this point, like I've started doing, started producing actual plays, which has been interesting and exciting to explore. So stuff like that. I think that will something to do with that. Agility I'm going to leave for a second because I'm not 100% sure. Off the top of my head, there's nothing I want to do to develop agility. There's like, I mean, there's stuff that I can do. I could go back and like really go hard on learning how to juggle. Like I know how to do basic juggling, but I could go hard and learn how to do that. Agility is a bit of a tough one because I spent a great deal of time working out of doors growing up, and specifically working out of doors in the cold, and that takes a toll on like your hands and sort of your manual dexterity. So we'll leave that blank for now. I mean, hey, every character has a dump stat, right? So we'll leave that blank until I find something that I want. And then heart. If like strength is more about like developing like physical, so like working out and developing like actual physical strength and endurance and stuff like that, I think heart is going to be more about I'm going to interpret that to be more about like feeding the soul. So I'm going to put down actually, and again, this is something that I've been like trying to get in the habit of doing, so this is a good cook for myself. Actually, specifically, cook a good meal for myself. Because, yeah, I can go and, like, make, like, just throw some rice in a pot. And then, you know, add salt, pepper, butter, and then just eat, like, a big bowl of rice. Technically, that is cooking for myself, but there is I think, a benefit to, if you have the ability, or you like maybe want to learn how to do it, there is a benefit to actually like taking care and like making yourself an actual proper meal, like, you know, something with a protein, a vegetable, and a grain, whatever that means to you. But like putting all of those components together and like actually treating yourself well, making yourself a meal as if you were making a meal for someone that you loved, which should be the same thing, and yet so often is not. Sorry if I'm calling out anyone else as I call myself out. Yeah, so I think that's going to be a good one to go over there. We'll leave agility for now. I will figure out something to go in there. I really don't want to just put in juggling, just cause. But yeah. So now that I have those things in there, obviously, you know, I'm really not going to be going ahead and playing the game in front of you today, because then I would have to like leave or find a way to take the camera with me and and set that up wherever I'm doing the stuff. But the whole point of it, so once you've done all this and you have got yourself set up and you have your tasks set up for each of your abilities, then you grab your notebook and you write the answer to the following question in as much or as little detail as you like. And the first question is, how do you begin your quest, and what is your first adversary? And it puts a little note under there that says, throughout the game you will be asked to answer questions. Whenever you see this, we mean you to write the answer in your notebook. So that's sort of the right. So you've got your big overarching goal, like I've written down here, the big, like, and it tells you that your big overarching goal should be like a big grand goal for you to go and achieve, right? Which is restore peace to the land. That is what I have. Big overarching goal, very, very big, very grand, very vague, right? And then through the course of your journaling is how you were going to like focus in on the specifics of the steps you take to reach that goal, right? You don't just get up in the morning, roll out of bed, and, you know, yay, I've brought 1% peace to the land, right? Like, there's always like smaller specific things that you were going after. And so once you've answered that initial question and you have that sort of first adversary that you're going to go after, it asks you to, so every time you engage in one of the 6 activities that you've put on your character sheet, once you have finished them, the game asks you to do a self-check to determine how you feel about the time that you spent. And then you will answer some questions based on sort of how you feel about it. And sort of your 3 basic choices are, and the question is like, how did you feel about the time that you just spent? So the first possibility is not the best time. You were distracted, you couldn't find your groove, you didn't enjoy the activity, or you had to finish it earlier than you liked. And so then it has some like prompt questions underneath that. So if that's how you felt, if that's how you feel about the activity, then your prompt questions are things like, how did you succeed despite great trial? What new ally saved you? What did you lose to save yourself or another? And these are like the story prompts. This is the stuff going on in the story that you're telling, the narrative that you're building, and it's all based on how you actually feel about like the activities that you're doing for yourself, your self-care activities and your self-improvement activities. if you had a fine time, like you basically did what you intended to do, but nothing special, like you finished your run, but there was no personal best or anything like that, then the prompt questions are things like, where did you go once you were finished what you had to do? How did this trial test you, and how did you surprise yourself? What new item did you find that will help you on your quest? Right, so this is the fairly standard, like if you've played any PBTA game, right, this is the, you know, amazing success with a cost, right? Like if you've played any sort of game that is structured that way, this is sort of the prompts, the way that the prompts are. So, and then of course the last choice is you had an amazing time, you exceeded your expectations, you really relaxed, you were engrossed and enjoyed the film you watched, you finished a project. How did you, and then the prompts are like, how did you push your limits and find a new plateau? How have your actions changed the world for the better? What did you do that they will all remember forever? Right? And so this is how you progress your story. Live your life, do the activities that you have put on your character sheet, and then when you have done the activities, like check in with yourself to see how you actually feel about how this is going on. Yeah. And then continue your story like sort of based on that feeling. Use these prompts. If something else occurs to you and you want to write something else, do that as well. You're not limited to just these prompts. Mosker says in chat, re-cooking, absolutely. There was a stretch during my TB year where I would get up, spend the time and energy chopping up whatever vegetables we had and put them in a crock pot. Yep, I do the same thing. Had healthy soup and a feeling of accomplishment throughout the day. Both very much needed. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, my slow cooker is my like best friend as far as like cooking meals and stuff go, because it is literally just I sort of got out of the habit of doing this, but I used to just get up in the morning, throw a bunch of stuff in the slow cooker, and this would be on like a work day. Throw a bunch of stuff in the slow cooker, turn it on, leave it for like, set it for like 8 or 10 hours, go to work, come home, and dinner would be ready, or like part of dinner, right? Like depending how much. And then maybe when I got home, all I had to do is like put on a pot of rice or boil up some pasta. And I've got like pasta and sauce, or I've got soup, or I've got like, you know, just, I've got that all waiting for me. And then because it's like a crock pot, like mine is like 5 point something liters. I've got tons of soup or sauce or stew or like whatever I've made in there left for later, and it's just really a great way, you know, a great way to look after yourself and make sure you always have something sort of fresh and home cooked for yourself. In fact, when I'm done the streaming for today, I'm just going to go pop something out of the freezer and stick it in the microwave that I made before. And so I know I've got like a decent, you know, a decent lunch coming. And so those are sort of the prompt questions. And that is the basic thing, is like, just do these things that are acts of self-care or acts of self-improvement that you want to do anyway. This is just, you know, this is just an extra something that helps you do that. And then tell the story that comes out of the prompts that develops. And, you know, I love games like this for that reason, is that it, in most cases, you're doing this stuff anyway. So then why not add that little extra level to it, where you're also creating, which is also good for you. And then one of the last things it says is inventory and abilities. So your character begins with 3 items in their pack. Something they need to survive, something they need on their quest, something pointing them in the right direction. Write these down. Whenever your character uses an item in your story, be sure to remove it from their pack. Your character also has a set of abilities that will grow as you play. They are assumed to have all the basic abilities of a trainee or level 1 version of your chosen class. When prompted, write a new ability down in the given slot and answer the following questions. What did you learn? How did you learn it? What can you do with it that no one else can? And then at the end here, it talks about, once you've finished writing, mark 1 XP next to one of your stats. When you reach 10 marks total, with at least 2 marks both plus sign and heart, you level up. Answer the following question. What has changed about you? And write down a new ability or piece of equipment your character has gained in their quest. You may also choose to write down how they got it and its history. Then clear off all your XP marks. Once you reach level 10, answer the following question. How did you win? And how will you be remembered forever? Then close the notebook. It is complete. And then theoretically, of course, you can like start a new notebook. It also has a little thing in here for legacy play. So if you wanted to play again, simply make a new character and pick an item your old one ended the story with. Write it in your new character's inventory and answer the following questions. Who left you this item and what did they hope you would do with it? Which I think is a beautiful way to sort of continue on. So yeah, this is like a pretty excellent example of like a sort of meta self-improvement game in which, you know, yes, absolutely, the crunch of the game is about you telling a story, but how you get there is by doing things in your own actual life that you want to do anyway, that then drive forward the story that you're working on and telling. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's something that so far I've only really seen in solo TTRPGs. I think it would be interesting if that became like a mechanic or a way of playing like a group game. Like imagine if you had your character, like imagine playing a group game sort of structured around this, where you have your character and you're all sort of like doing stuff and telling a story together, and you have your abilities sort of based on your class and stuff like that. But then also, right, so you show up and you're like, well, I worked out 3 times this week and I cooked, linguine and clams for myself yesterday, and I like just taking over, and I studied like French every day, and your GM just goes, yep, great, you did all that, marks off, and you you level up your character where appropriate, and then sort of based on everything that everyone has done, those are now sort of your story resources for the story that you're going to tell that week. And so you talk about like sort of where were we last week, what are we working on, like what are we trying to accomplish here, what do we run into, how do we overcome it, these are the resources we have, how do we use them, and then it goes from being like a very sort of solo solitary thing, which isn't bad, right? Working on stuff by yourself is not a bad thing, but it is nice to have like the support of your friends when you're doing stuff like this, and like being able to play a game where you sort of have, you get together with your friends and you get to do like a little bit of it's not even bragging, it's just that you get to take like pleasure in, and you get to take ownership of doing these good things for yourself, and you get to do that in front of your friends. Like you get to be proud of something in front of your friends and have your friends like support you and affirm for you that yes, you should be proud of this. You've done like these amazing things, and these amazing things are not only helping you, but they're helping drive forward this story that we're all telling together. I think that would be a really interesting mechanic. I could definitely see even just like taking the basics of ego here and having like a group of people just do this, but then come together to tell the story, would be really fascinating. I think that would be a lot of fun and an interesting way to use this type of game. Yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to say about Ego. It is a wonderful little game. I've put the link in chat there a couple of times, so please do go check it out. Yeah, thank you to everyone who stopped by. Once again, I'm doing all of this in support of Extra Life, so I will put that link in chat again. If you are so inclined and you have the means, please do swing by my Extra Life page and make a donation. All the money donated goes to help sick kids, and that's a pretty awesome thing. If you there are some excellent incentives on there, and I will sort of, I think, like over the course of December, there's a lot of stuff that I'm going to work on towards getting these incentives out and creating items for people and doing the editing that I promised and stuff like that. So probably like December and into January, I'll take care of all that stuff. That's usually the time period. Yeah, thanks so much for coming by, and I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit about solo TTRPGs and just listening to me go on about how much I love these games. There's some really great stuff out there. I will actually, something I haven't linked yet, this is my website. If you go there, dorkcolorcanada.ca, I've got posts up where I have links to like all of the games that I've been playing over the last little while, so please do go and check all those out if you missed some of the earlier stuff. You can also find links there to my YouTube channel, where I've got where I'm exporting like all the VODs from these sessions. So if you missed anything and you see something interesting and you want to sort of see how it plays, please do watch one of those videos and sort of get yourself up to speed on the game, because we've covered, at this point we've covered like 15 or 16 solo TTRPGs, and I'm going to be doing this every Thursday and like through to the end of the year anyway. So so that's at least 5 more, and then I will reassess and decide how I want to do things in the new year. I think I definitely want to keep on going with Thursdays, but I may change up sort of like my my scope and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks again. Yeah, thank you for stopping by and watching watching me do this stuff. Keep an eye out for the VOD. I'll post on Twitter when it goes live on YouTube, and have a great rest of your Saturday, everyone. Thanks so much for coming by, and take care.